What if the woman you're with is testing you right now, and you don't even know it? Every word, every action, every gesture could be part of a deeper, unspoken game, one that you're only now starting to realize. The truth is, women often test the men in their lives, especially in romantic relationships. These tests aren't always overt or obvious. In fact, they're often hidden in plain sight, woven into the fabric of everyday interactions. These subtle tests are not acts of manipulation. They are deeply ingrained behaviors, shaped by centuries of societal and evolutionary influences. At their core, these tests are about something much more fundamental than just checking if you're trustworthy. They're about assessing compatibility, emotional connection, and long-term security. A woman, whether consciously or unconsciously, is trying to answer a critical question. Can I trust you? Can I rely on you when it counts? Will you stand by me through thick and thin? The catch? These tests are rarely about control. They are not designed to trap or trick you. They are a natural psychological mechanism to gauge whether the relationship is built on a solid foundation of mutual understanding and emotional safety. They are rooted in an instinctive need for security, shaped by centuries of evolution. So how aware are you of these tests? More importantly, how will you respond when they come your way? In this journey, we're going to dive deep into the hidden psychology that governs relationships, the unseen forces at play that shape the way men and women connect. These dynamics are more powerful than most of us realize. And if you're truly paying attention, you might start to see the game for what it really is. Ready to take a closer look? Let's uncover the truths you've been missing. To understand why women test men, we must first understand attachment theory. This psychological framework, developed by John Bowlby, explains that our early relationships with caregivers form the blueprint for how we approach relationships later in life. Women, like all human beings, are wired for emotional connection and security. When a woman tests her partner, it's often because she's seeking emotional safety. She wants to know if her partner will be there when things get tough. Will he provide the support and loyalty she needs? Will he be emotionally stable in the face of stress, conflict, or vulnerability? Attachment theory teaches us that these tests are a reflection of a woman's attachment style, a psychological pattern that determines how she feels about closeness, trust, and security in relationships. However, it's important to note that these tests are rarely malicious. They are not about trapping men or playing mind games for the sake of it. Rather, they are driven by a woman's need for reassurance. It's not about a desire for power or control. It's about her deep need to feel safe, secure, and loved. Testing is a way to navigate the complexities of human connection, ensuring that her emotional world will be met with the care and stability she needs. It's a coping mechanism, one that stems from inner insecurities and the fear of being let down. These fears are not unique to women, but they are often more socially acceptable for women to express. The complexity of relationships is hidden in the small, seemingly inconsequential moments. If you look closely, you'll see the subtle tests that women often give men, tests that aren't loud or obvious, but instead woven quietly into the fabric of everyday interactions. These tests can take the form of seemingly innocent questions, offhand comments, or emotional reactions that seem to come out of nowhere. They are challenges designed to evaluate something much deeper: emotional intelligence, reliability, and integrity. Women are not always asking these questions to receive a direct answer. They're asking to gauge the emotional depth of the conversation. They want to know if their partner is emotionally engaged enough to truly consider her needs and feelings. This isn't a trap. It's a need for validation, not just from the surface level, but from a deeper emotional connection. These tests can seem small, like fleeting comments in a moment, but they carry weight. The way a man responds, his tone, his openness, his ability to empathize, reveals his emotional intelligence and his capacity for emotional intimacy. A response that seems indifferent or overly dismissive could be perceived as a lack of care or commitment. It's also important to recognize that these emotional tests can happen without direct confrontation. Sometimes a woman will test the reliability of her partner by showing vulnerability, either through sharing a difficult feeling or an insecurity. She may be testing his reaction to see if he is a safe emotional space. Does he listen? One of the most subtle and telling tests involves assessing a partner's integrity. Integrity isn't just about honesty, it's about consistency, reliability, and trustworthiness. A woman might test this through actions that seem like simple requests, but they have hidden layers. A small task like, "Can you pick up groceries on your way home?" may seem trivial, but how a man handles this request speaks volumes. Does he follow through? Does he take the time to consider her needs? Psychologically speaking, these subtle tests often stem from self-validation needs. A woman, like anyone, wants to feel seen and valued for who she is, not just for what she can give. In relationships, this need for self-validation is closely tied to a desire for emotional safety. Tests like these, whether direct or indirect, are part of a deeper process of emotional self-care. Another crucial psychological element behind these tests is attachment theory. Women who have developed anxious attachment styles may be more prone to testing their partner's commitment because they are conditioned to feel insecure about their emotional needs being met. They might seek constant reassurance, not out of manipulation, but because they fear abandonment. These tests are the quiet, subtle ways women assess whether their partner truly understands, values, and respects them. They are not designed to catch men off guard, but rather to reveal whether the relationship is strong enough to weather challenges. They force men to evaluate their own emotional intelligence, their reliability, and their ability to provide a safe, stable foundation for the woman they care about. The true test is not about passing or failing in the traditional sense. It's about whether you are emotionally attuned enough to see the test for what it is, a need for connection, trust, and genuine emotional depth. In the delicate dance of romantic relationships, every step, every word, every decision holds weight. And sometimes it only takes one misstep to send everything crashing down. These small mistakes may seem inconsequential at first, but for women, the emotional stakes are often much higher than we realize. The tests they give, subtle and layered, carry with them an invisible tension. When men fail these tests, even in the smallest way, the emotional consequences can be profound. The truth is, when a woman tests a man, she's not necessarily trying to catch him in a lie or to set him up for failure. She's testing whether he can offer something deeper. Emotional security. For women, trust isn't built on grand gestures alone. It's shaped in everyday interactions, in how he responds when things are small and seemingly insignificant. These subtle tests often involve the emotional foundation of the relationship, and when that foundation is shaken, even momentarily, it can create significant emotional distance. The anxiety that arises from these emotional tests is often compounded by an overactive imagination. In moments of vulnerability, women may start catastrophizing the situation. One small mistake becomes evidence of larger, unspoken flaws. The emotional overthinking that follows can distort the way she perceives her partner's actions, making every minor issue feel like a sign of something more serious. This isn't about a lack of trust in the partner himself, but rather a reflection of the internal battle she faces with her own need for security and emotional stability. Women have been socialized to seek emotional validation, and when it feels absent, it can trigger deep feelings of insecurity. What's more is the fragility of the emotional equilibrium in many relationships. When trust feels like it's being tested, it creates a delicate balance. If that balance is disrupted by a simple misstep, the emotional consequences can feel destabilizing. This is where the stakes of these tests become high. Relationships are often not as stable as they appear on the surface. Women are constantly evaluating in small ways and whether their partner can emotionally keep up, whether he's really as committed as he claims to be, or if his words align with his actions. These tests can create a cycle. The woman tests, the man fails, and the woman grows anxious. This anxiety leads to overthinking and emotional turmoil, which can then cause her to test more. The more a partner fails, the more emotional distance begins to build, creating a fragile atmosphere where one wrong move, one forgotten promise, one poorly timed emotional reaction can feel like the end of something much larger. In extreme cases, it can lead to the slow unraveling of the relationship. The smallest failure, when repeated over time, accumulates, And what seemed like a minor misstep becomes the straw that breaks the camel's back. Failing these tests is not always about intent. It's not about proving someone wrong or doing something intentionally hurtful. It's about a misstep in understanding the emotional landscape, a failure to connect deeply when it counts. The emotional stakes, once set, are higher than they appear. These tests are about security, trust, and commitment. And when they're tested, the smallest mistake can tip the balance. In every relationship, whether romantic or otherwise, there exists a delicate dance of power. This power dynamic isn't always clear-cut. Often it's invisible, hidden behind the subtle tests women give, the words they choose, and the way they react to their partner's responses. At first glance, it may seem like a simple misunderstanding or an isolated incident. But dig deeper and you'll realize that many of these tests are more than just emotional check-ins. They are part of a larger power struggle that plays out between men and women in ways we seldom recognize. Women may not always be conscious of these tests, but they often serve a greater purpose: to assert control over their emotional security. Women, shaped by both societal expectations and evolutionary instincts, are wired to seek stability, loyalty, and emotional reliability. The tests they give are a way of determining whether the man they are with can provide that. These aren't necessarily manipulations or games, but rather ways of gauging how well their partner will hold up under emotional strain, how well he understands, reacts, and adapts to their needs. The stakes are high. Emotional security is foundational to any relationship, and these subtle tests ensure that their emotional needs will be met. For men, these tests can feel puzzling, even frustrating. What seems like an innocuous question about the future or an unexpected emotional outburst can often feel like an attack or a challenge to their autonomy. And this is where the power struggle begins. Society has shaped men and women differently, giving them different roles, expectations, and emotional tools to navigate relationships. Men are often taught to value logic, decisiveness, and stoicism, while women are socialized to embrace emotional intelligence, empathy, and vulnerability. These differing emotional languages can lead to misunderstandings. When a woman tests a man, she's often trying to measure his emotional intelligence, his ability to understand and connect with her emotional landscape. A woman may want to see if he's in tune with her, if he's emotionally present, or if he's capable of navigating complex emotional situations with maturity. However, if a man misinterprets this test or responds with frustration, dismissiveness, or confusion, he may unintentionally signal a lack of emotional depth or a failure to meet her needs. This misstep doesn't necessarily mean he is uncaring. It simply reveals the power imbalance that can occur when men fail to grasp the deeper emotional needs at play. In modern relationships, this imbalance can create friction, where the woman feels emotionally unsupported and the man feels emotionally overwhelmed or confused. Both are searching for the same thing: connection, understanding, and stability. But they often find themselves speaking different emotional languages. The subtle tests are not necessarily about control, but about finding harmony in the relationship's power dynamics. When both partners are aligned in understanding the emotional needs beneath these tests, the power struggle can transform into a healthy, balanced dynamic. In a world where emotional dynamics run deep and testing is often a part of the game, the question becomes, how do you respond without falling into the trap of overcompensation or misunderstanding? How do you navigate these subtle emotional tests without losing yourself in the process? The key to passing these tests is not performance, but authentic emotional engagement. At the core of emotional connection lies emotional intelligence. Emotional intelligence, or EQ, is the ability to understand, manage, and express one's emotions effectively, while also being attuned to the emotions of others. In relationships, this ability is crucial. Women, when they test men, are often seeking more than just reassurance or compliance. The first step to navigating these tests is active listening. Active listening goes beyond hearing the words spoken. It's about paying attention to the emotions beneath those words. It's about noticing the subtle shifts in tone, body language, and facial expressions. The nonverbal cues that often reveal the true emotional state of the person speaking. When a woman asks a seemingly simple question, She may not just be seeking an answer. She may be gauging your ability to listen and engage with the deeper feelings she's expressing. Listening is more than a skill. It's a demonstration of respect, care, and emotional presence. One of the most effective strategies to build trust and pass these emotional tests is emotional resilience. Emotional resilience is the ability to stay calm, composed, and empathetic in the face of emotional challenges. Relationships are filled with ups and downs, and during moments of emotional turbulence, it's easy to feel overwhelmed or to react defensively, but emotional resilience allows you to handle these moments with grace and maturity. It means you can stay present, remain empathetic, and respond in a way that doesn't escalate conflict, but instead fosters understanding. By demonstrating resilience, you show your partner that you are someone who can be relied upon during difficult times, someone who won't buckle under pressure or avoid uncomfortable emotions. One of the key elements of emotional resilience is managing your own emotional state. Often, when we feel attacked or misunderstood, our first instinct is to react defensively, to shut down, or to withdraw. However, responding with calmness and emotional awareness is far more powerful. This is where self-regulation comes into play. It's the ability to pause, take a breath, and choose how to respond, rather than react impulsively. In relationships, self-regulation helps you maintain control over your emotions, even when the stakes are high. By staying calm, you allow space for open communication and understanding, which ultimately strengthens the bond between you and your partner. In the beginning, the tests can seem harmless, almost like a necessary part of getting to know each other. But when they persist, when they become the foundation of emotional interaction, something deeper is at play. The truth is, relationships cannot thrive on constant testing. True emotional intimacy is not built on proving worthiness or passing trials. It is cultivated through mutual understanding, respect, and deep, honest communication. When both partners move beyond the need to test each other and start to truly see each other, with all their flaws and vulnerabilities, a new kind of connection can form. The key to breaking this cycle is self-awareness, the ability to look inward and recognize your own emotional needs, fears, and patterns. When you understand your own vulnerabilities, you can communicate them openly with your partner, without the need for testing or manipulation. Relationships rooted in emotional intelligence and self-awareness are far more resilient than those based on fear and uncertainty. This is where self-actualization comes into play. Self-actualization is the process of becoming the fullest version of yourself. Someone who is emotionally secure, self-reliant, and capable of expressing vulnerability without fear. When both partners are on this path of self-discovery, their connection deepens. They stop needing to test each other because they already trust that the relationship is built on a solid foundation of understanding, respect, and communication. Personal growth is essential to moving beyond emotional games. As individuals grow emotionally, they develop the tools to navigate difficult conversations, face vulnerability without defensiveness, and create a relationship that is not governed by the need for constant validation or approval. When you and your partner begin to understand each other's emotional needs and vulnerabilities, testing becomes obsolete. Now that you've seen the hidden dynamics at play and understand how subtle tests shape relationships, it's time to take control. The power to change your interactions, to build trust, and to create deeper connections is in your hands. The real question is, are you ready to put what you've learned into action? If this video helped you see relationships from a new perspective, don't let this knowledge slip away. Hit that like button, share this with someone who needs to hear it, and comment below with your thoughts. I want to hear how you're going to approach your relationships moving forward. Make sure to subscribe so you don't miss out on more in-depth insights like this. Trust me, there's a lot more to uncover. Join the conversation, and let's build a community that's all about real, honest, and empowered relationships. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you in the next video.